Hi, everyone. Welcome to tonight's virtual event with Brookline Booksmith featuring Meg Bashwiner and Joseph Fink for their book, The First 10 Years, in conversation with Erin McKeown. My name is Bree, and I am Assistant Events Director at Brookline Booksmith in Brookline, Mass. If you're familiar with our store, welcome back. If this is your first time hearing about us, welcome. We're very happy to have you join our community this evening. We appreciate your support of Meg and Joseph and an independent bookstore through your purchase and attendance. The chat and question box are open, like I said, so feel free to make use of those. Remember to set your chat to all panelists and attendees that you can talk to other people in the audience. And please drop your questions into the Q&A box at the bottom of the Zoom window so they don't get lost. Please note that Brookline Booksmith has a strict policy against abusive behavior and language, and at our discretion, any attendee can be removed from an event for partaking in such behavior. Okay, now on to the fun stuff. Erin McKeown is a musician, writer, and producer known internationally for her prolific disregard for stylistic boundaries, opposite of regard. She has released 10 full-length albums and several EPs over the past 20 years, all while refining her distinctive and challenging mix of American musical forms. Her first musical, Miss You Like Hell, opened off-Broadway at the Public Theater in 2018. Meg Bashwiner is a writer, performer, tour manager, podcaster, and producer. She is the MC for the international touring live show of Welcome to Night Vale podcast and an alumni member of the acclaimed New York theater company, the New York Neo-Futurists. Joseph Fink created the Welcome to Night Vale and Alice Isn't Dead podcast and is the author of the novel Alice Isn't Dead and co-author of the New York Times best-selling novel Welcome to Night Vale, It Devours, The Faceless Old Woman Who Secretly Lives in Your Home, and 4 Welcome to Night Vale episode script books. The First 10 Years is a poignant, funny, and soul-bearing memoir in which Joseph and Meg recount their first 10 years together, telling their story as they remember it and not consulting the other. It's a pleasure to have them all with us here tonight. Please welcome Erin McKeown, Meg Bashwiner, and Joseph Fink.
Woo! Thanks, Bree. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Hi, Meg. Hi, Joseph.
Hi, Erin.
Hi. I know where you are, but tell our participants where you are.
So we are at our home in the Hudson River Valley in New York State, United States,
world,
North America, world, Milky Way.
in front of your bar, at your dining room table, yep, with this really great Brooklyn wallpaper in the back and a peacock perhaps behind you.
I think it's a pheasant.
It's a
pheasant. Oh my gosh, my apologies to the pheasant. So we're here tonight because I love your book and you asked me to talk to you about it. So thank you. And I'm going to guess that, I don't know, the folks I'm going to encourage people again to put in the chat where they're listening from and if you've read the book or not. I'm just really curious because we might have a different conversation if people have read it like I have or if people are sort of curious about it. So yeah, folks, put stuff in the chat. What I thought we would do is I actually asked you all to do a little reading for me, a little live reading of the book. And for those that didn't quite get it from the introduction, it's structured by years, and Joseph gives his version of the year and Meg gives her version of the year. And so you get these two distinctive voices talking sometimes about the same things and sometimes about different things. But I thought it'd be interesting tonight to read a couple of my favorite spots from the book, but have the person who's reading it be the person it's about. So do either one of you want to go first? Thank you for playing this game with me.
I'll go first. I originally thought, I was like, oh, when we did the audiobook, maybe we should read each other's, which was like an idea that lasted for like a second because we do have such distinct different voices that it would be weird to try to like kind of play each other. But I do like the opportunity to get to do this, like even just a little bit. So this is Joseph, what Joseph wrote. This is a section from 2014 with a section selection selected by Erin. So curated by your moderator. Okay. Now, Meg and Mai's relationship in the car is set in stone. She is the driver, navigator. This is true on tour, and it is true when we are on vacation, and it is true when we go to the grocery store at home. There may be better measures of a relationship, but here is one, and I stand by it. Across 3 continents and countless countries, Meg has never crashed the car, and I have never gotten us lost. After 6 years of touring, we move with confidence throughout the world. The 2 of us can navigate airports and train stations, customs lines, and foreign ATMs with speed and practiced ability, and mostly without having to talk about it. We know what each of us is in charge of because we know what each of us does best. We can tell when I'm getting hungry, and so I'm likely to get grumpy. We can tell when Meg is feeling overwhelmed, and so is likely to get grumpy. I'm not saying we are perfect. There are still times when travel is hard, because there are still times when life is hard. And certainly there are many, many times when touring is hard. No one who has toured for more than a few years doesn't feel the sharp edges and deep shadows of a tour. But we are not alone out there. That makes all the difference. A picture taken by our friend and touring musician Mary Epworth in November of 2014 sums up not only our touring life, but much of our life together. In it, Meg and I are waiting at the gate of a crowded flight. Meg is in her big red cowboy boots that were the main shoes she wore for several years. My coat lies tossed in a pile on the ground. I'm reading a book, engrossed in some fictional world, ignoring the crowd around me. Meg is fast asleep, her head on my shoulder. In this way, we lived our lives and continue to live them. Life on tour is extraordinary, but it is, above all, life, and together we learned to live it.
Thank you. How's that feel to read?
Lovely.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you able to take in the, I don't know, I liked this passage just because it was like this, what I like about what Joseph's voice in this book is this like beautiful mix of these everyday moments, but then, you know, the sort of thing like, right, this is the miracle too, at the same thing. And it's this particular way, and it's nice. Yeah, that's what I like about that passage. But it's also like, it's so loving.
It is really loving and kind to me and kind to our relationship. It's really nice that he views us that way, that as this team that has assigned roles and knows each other's tics and needs and wants, and together we can work as a team to get through life, whether life is on the road or life is going to the grocery store. So it is really sweet. Did that feel like a surprise when you read the book? It was hard for me. Actually, this is a really nice exercise because it was kind of hard for me when I was reading it to think about it that way, because it is this piece of art that we're creating that we want to have a certain quality and a certain tone. So I look at it almost from a distance, where it's like, this isn't about me. This is a piece of writing that I'm looking at to make sure, you know, it's something that we want to present to the world. But when you look at it like, oh, this is something that he wrote about me, it is really touching and beautiful. So it's a lovely little exercise, Erin.
Joseph, would you like to, your passage is less, the passage I chose for you is in some ways less elegant, and in other ways quite special, and very strongly in Meg's voice.
You chose a deeply awkward passage for me to read.
I didn't do that on purpose. I was more concentrating on the first part of the passage than the last part. You feel free to skip the end if you don't feel like
it's kind of all awkward because it's also, well, I'll just read it, but I just want to be clear that I did not write this.
I wrote this about him. We're clear.
I love Joseph Fink. You get that, right? I love his silly walk, his furry chest, his tiny hands and feet. I love the way he thinks about things and how he makes decisions. I love the way he forms an opinion. I love how he thinks about justice and society. I love the art he makes and how he thinks and feels about the art he does not make. I love his t-shirts. Today I'm wearing a Malblum.
I was going to note, you do have very fine t-shirts.
I love when he bakes and when he brings me coffee in bed. I love how organized he is with spreadsheets. I love how he plans trips. I love how after we watch a movie, he goes on the internet to read critiques and trivia about it, but also he gives money to charity. He doesn't have a bad temper. He doesn't gamble or drink to excess or do drugs recklessly. He has a good relationship with his family, who are lovely and smart people. We mostly agree on politics and can still have respectful political disagreements. He's good with money. He's kind to animals. He's a good tipper. He showers and brushes his teeth regularly. He has a very nice dick. For me, this is a really good partner. It will be different for you. Please consider more things than just good dick, but don't forget to include that if that's something you are into.
Thank you for reading that.
It is a kind of torture, I think, to be forced to read a bunch of nice things about you out loud, and I don't know why that is, but it is true.
That was part of my request, because I think that's something that's really special about this book. Whereas, like, hearing what Meg said about, like, oh, well, we actually kind of view it at this distance, so maybe we're not really taking it in. But it is the hardest. It's the hardest thing for me about being in an intimate relationship, is this fact that, like, somebody could possibly love me. Do you know what I mean? I mean, that's being a little extreme about it, but, like, that's part of the, for me, the fear of intimate relationship. And I feel like what you all have done in this book is, like, sort of smoothed over that, and maybe for us, so we can see that. So I was just, I was curious, like, yeah, if you actually have to read what someone has written about you, can you take it in? But Joseph, do you think that what Meg wrote is true? No, not a word, not about the dick part. Leave that to you. But there's nothing on this list that I would necessarily, like, factually argue with. I think she's right. I just feel that there's something deeply uncomfortable about just listing only the good qualities about yourself in a public way.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because, did you know what specifically I loved about you? Or did you know that I just loved you? Like, what if you had to list the things that you thought I loved about you? What would they be?
Well, there isn't, just to interrupt, but there isn't really equivalent passages, because I kind of looked for, like, equivalent passages. And there isn't really, like, Joseph doesn't do, like, a list of things he loves about Meg. And Meg, you don't quite write the same kind of paragraph that, like, combines the, like, a miracle and the mundane from this one moment. Like, so it was it's interesting because your voices are so different.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I should have listed all the things I love about Meg.
Well, I'm not saying that. I'm saying, like, are those the things that you thought I loved about you? Oh, I have to move the bread around.
Oh, good.
I don't know. I guess maybe I'm thinking of it in a different way, where, to me, love is not a list, which is, I'm not trying to disqualify this list, but I'm just saying that, like, I think love is a series of decisions. It's sort of it's the sum of all the parts. And so, I mean, I could make a list of things that I think are really great about Meg, but I don't know if those add up to my love for her. I think my love for her is not a sum of its parts. It's just sort of a thing that exists in all of it. Because it also exists in the things I don't like about her. Like, I think love is also, like, the parts where someone does something that you find mildly annoying, but it's fine because you love them. Like, that's also part of it.
I think that's super well put, actually. I mean, I don't know that. I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm certainly, like, it's been helpful for me to, like, work through a list of things people don't like about me. not for a book talk. Did you all really not talk to each other about it as you were making it?
Not, like, really. We kind of softly talked about things. Like, it was just like, I was thinking maybe for 2015 I would talk about, X, but it was never like, this is what I'm writing. This is the exact story I'm telling. This is even, like, we didn't let each other really even see it until right before it went to the editor. So we each got one pass through it, really, before it went over to our editor to put together. We wanted to just we had the initial conversations because we wanted to make sure we weren't telling the exact same story in the exact same way, as if that would even be possible. But so we would just kind of make sure that we were doing something a little bit different from each other as far as content. And then, we didn't really pour over stuff and then once we really didn't give each other notes either, other than just like, oh, I think this passage is strong, or I think, you want to tighten this up here. Like, it was pretty much editorial as opposed to content.
Well, I mean, I think with the sort of, like, the conceit of, like, you each tell a thing, it's like Exquisite Corpse, right? That's the best version of it, but there's a bad version of it somewhere where you're like, well, I think it happened this way and I think it happened that way, and it's not interesting. And that doesn't happen in this book, which is really, really great. For the reasons I think you were saying, that like it is really kind of impossible to talk about the same things in the same way, but the ways that it's different is actually what's interesting to me. It's not as interesting to me. I mean, there's a couple moments where like the morning after pill, it's like kind of fun to hear like how you each remember that, but for the most part, it's really like tells me more about you all in like your priorities, like in each of the different years where you're looking at, right, this was what was important to Joseph, and this year this was important to Meg. And it's not that they fit together, and it ends up, for me, it ends up being more like Exquisite Corpse, where like some kind of cool thing that you didn't imagine coming from things next to each other happens.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, like, I'm very into games in art. I'm very into, like, you set a series of rules and then you follow them. And I think that's a really interesting way to make work. And so, yeah, I thought the rules of this were interesting, and I just sort of trusted that if we followed them, the result would be interesting. Yeah, my Night Vale co-writer Jeffrey, one of his favorite things, I mean, he doesn't do it that much, but he enjoys when there's a monologue or a talk being given, and then the photos behind the person are completely random photos that have nothing to do with what they're talking about, because the audience will always start drawing connections. They'll start finding ways that those things pair. So that, yeah, I knew that if you put these stories together, even if we were talking about different things in each year, there would be ways that the reader would start pairing those things and finding the connections, because that's very much what we're built to do.
Is there anything that surprised you in these like Exquisite Corpse like thing? This ended up next to this thing, or?
Yeah, I mean, not a ton surprised me, like, factually. I mean, there's like things we disagreed about. Most of our disagreements were like very minor factual things of like, did it happen on this date or this date, and in what order, and where did it happen? Like minor things like that. A lot of the like emotional journey of the first few years, it's, you know, when you're in your early 20s and you're in the start of a relationship, you're very focused on your own journey because you're still figuring everything out. And so it's interesting to go back over those memories, looking at it from Meg's point of view, because it's just an entire emotional journey that I just don't think I was fully aware of because I was so wrapped up in my own thing.
Yeah, what surprised me wasn't necessarily the content. Again, like Joseph, not the like discrepancies of fact. For me, actually, what was interesting is that Joseph is mostly a fiction writer, and I've seen Joseph write nonfiction before. I've seen him write a good amount of it, but never something at this length. So seeing how his style, his writing style was applied to nonfiction was really the most surprising thing to me. Was, yeah, seeing how he shaped a story, seeing how he describes a moment, and how it still very much feels very fictional to me in the creating of the world and the details that are included, that are a little bit more ethereal, as opposed to me, the nonfiction writer, that is like the details are the facts. Like this is the sky is blue. The sky is, you know, not like azure, you know. So my surprise, my biggest surprise was seeing his novelist fiction writer's take on our world. So it's almost like I was, you know, taken into our own story.
Well, it's funny. I guess, like, right, I'm glad you put it that way, because that's a great way to describe the difference in your styles, where it's like you're sort of a documentarian and Joseph is sort of the cinematographer, like, or writing like writing a fantasy movie. It's another way that those like differences support each other, which I think is also probably like a good bigger message of the book, right? I love what you all wrote about touring. I have to say,
been on the road with us. I've been everywhere.
Yeah.
We've done all of North America, Australia, and Europe together.
We have gone around the world, and some of my very fondest memories of, I mean, I've been on the road for years, same as you all, but some of my very fondest memories are like Night Vale road memories. But something I really liked about this, it's hard to describe people who haven't toured, like exactly like the particular fresh hell that is, but also the like beauty of it. And I think the book did that like really well. I also toured with a partner for years. So I also had that level of, I think the book makes really clear, like if you can tour together, like you're set. And then if you add the next Olympic level of difficulty of like touring with your partner, like you really like, so I also appreciated that because I 100% like lived that world too. But the thing that I thought was interesting was that you all sort of made this like comparison between how, and this is again something that I haven't been able to articulate, but I like how y'all put it, which is like it's like organizing a wedding every day. Like going out and doing these shows is like organizing a wedding every day, and it kind of is, right? There's like a lot of pressure and a lot of money and a lot of moving pieces, and you want it to go well, and you have to get dressed up and et cetera, et cetera. Except that it's like you don't usually spend all day on your wedding like driving 8 hours, et cetera. But I do think that I liked that comparison, but I've never gotten married. So I want to know from you who have gotten married, like, what's the difference? Is it really like, what was it wasn't just another gig.
It kind of felt like another gig. Our first wedding did, because we had two parties. We had a party on the East Coast, kind of for my family, and then we had a party on the West Coast for Joseph's family because he's grew up in California. So we didn't want to live like that. Was another one of the things we at that point in the game, we were in our later 20s. And so a lot of like people I grew up with had already gotten married. So they had those big weddings where there's the huge bridal party and everyone travels in from around, like they're bringing the whole family from around the country. Like my sister got married 6 months before me and did that like big wedding thing. And
especially I was like you're North Jersey, and North Jersey weddings are like the banquet hall with the cocktail hour that has a carving station. Like it's,
yeah. So I was like, did not want that. Like my sister had just done it. My sister had a beautiful wedding and it was lovely, but I did not want to repeat that same big thing 6 months down the road. So yeah, so it was like something that we threw ourselves. We just kind of threw two parties, and like that was really the story of it. It was like a long, exhausting day, but tour is like a long, exhausting day. The second one, the wedding in LA, was a much more chill because we got married the day of our New York party. So that morning we had like to actually like do the vows and all the big stuff. And our New York party was bigger, and it's New York, so everything's harder in New York. It's like doing a New York show, where it's like the New York City show is always way harder to do than
yeah.
So yeah, but it really kind of just was like that of another gig. I think I say in the book, like it was not the best day of my life. I've had better days of my life, and that's fine. It was never supposed to be the best day of my life. Like it was just supposed to be a kind of a big party for all our friends.
My main memory of the actual day we got married, I mean, the wedding ceremony was great because we did it in our apartment with just like our immediate family.
I didn't know that, and it really made me happy.
we were married by our friend Dylan, who we just like toured the country with. We had just done our like 2-month tour that he was on, and so we were all it just felt very, very small and nice and quiet, which is what we really needed after that year of touring. But the actual night was, I mean, it was just like, yeah, the New York one was afterwards. The catering company just kind of left and was like, well, clean up the place. And so it was just like the two of us in like our wedding clothes, exhausted and drunk, just trying to clean up this place and like carry heavy bags of trash out. It really was a rough experience in a lot of ways. The LA one was nicer because it was just like a little more relaxed. But yeah, the New York wedding in many ways was a rougher day than some of the touring days we've had.
Yeah, it's kind of like a 2-show night is what it feels like. 2-show night with a big travel day.
Right. The second show is always a little better and a little weirder.
Yeah.
Did you ever consider getting married on stage?
Oh God.
In a great like country music fashion.
I don't like ceremonies. I'm not a ceremony person. The only graduation I ever went to was my 8th grade graduation. I skipped my high school and college graduations. And I mean, it was part of the reason Meg proposed to me is like, I was very happy to spend my life with her, but I just didn't care that much about getting married because I just don't care that much about ceremonies. So yeah, like a big wedding seems like a big public wedding feels nightmarish to me because it's just kind of, it's putting our life out there, which I know we just wrote a memoir, but I often don't like to do.
Grab the book and put the book in. I mean,
but I have some control over the book.
Yes, you do.
Also, sometimes when you're on stage, you're performing, and I don't feel like I was performing at our wedding ceremony because it really was just like my parents, Joseph's mom, my sister, Joseph's sister. Like it was really just pretty. Like just us, so we could very comfortably be ourselves, and that was what we wanted for that, as opposed to
whenever I've had to play a wedding, I've not as the band, but like when someone has asked me to be part of their wedding, which has happened a few times, I have been more nervous than I've ever been in any other situation. And I think it's because we were saying it's like it isn't a performance, it's something else. And yeah, I think that makes sense. Okay, maybe I'll get married. No.
It was fine. It was nice.
I mean, the actual
the honeymoon was the best part. That's the whole reason to get married.
We spent most of the budget on the honeymoon, and I would do that again.
Yeah, but it was like 2/3 of our budget was the honeymoon.
That sounds right to me. It's interesting that you say, Joseph, that you're not into ceremony. Because I had this other question for y'all about there's a few little things in the book that are about these like little rituals that you have with each other, like things that you say to each other, or like the thing about having a bakery string on your wrist. Is it there, by the way?
Oh yeah, you can see it.
Oh, that's adorable. Are there any other ones that you left out of the book, or any ones from the book you want to highlight? Because that's for me, that's what being in a couple is like the little shit that you make up that's only like I have whole like languages and grammar with like other partners. You know what I mean? In particular, like you have the way you talk to your dog and you have the way you talk to your partner, and they're kind of like these different voices. So I could really relate to that. But are there like, yeah, are there rituals that you didn't put in the book, or things from the book that are like special rituals to you?
I think there's tons, because again, when you live with someone and you spend so much time with them, everything, you have a routine, which so becomes a ritual. It's like, whenever we're in the car for more than 10 minutes, Joseph gets 2 seltzers for us to drink. And then, it's like, it's just like sort of that sort of stuff. And then it's also, there's I don't know if it's so much a ritual, but you are kind of able to, when you both observe something, you can acknowledge it with each other without having to say it. So if it's something that you've like talked about before, or you both noticed like something, you can kind of just catch each other's eye across a room or even next to each other and know exactly what the other person is thinking and why. So yeah, there's that aspect. I'm trying to think of other rituals we have. And we have our like more like such a rigid morning routine, which is described in the 2018 chapter, which is all of our weirdness.
I mean, a big one. Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, the morning routine is a big one, but one that's happening, right? Like this house, you can't smell it, but it's starting to smell really good with challah. And like, I grew up with Shabbat dinners being a really important thing in my family. My mom would make a challah every week. And so we didn't really do much with Shabbat for a very long time. And in the last few years, we've started to make Shabbat a special meal, do the prayers and usually the challah. Sometimes we do pizza. It counts, it's bread. And having that back in my life has felt very good. It feels very much like home and family to the beautiful thing about Shabbat is it's a family holiday that comes every week. Like it has all of the rest and celebration of like a family holiday, but you get to do it every week and you can kind of celebrate the end of the week with it.
Is taxidermy a ritual?
It certainly is a kind of a mutual thing that we both didn't know we were into until we both discovered at the same moment that we were into it. So yeah, we have lived in, the bread is done.
Priorities.
One day we were walking around in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, and we walked into a store and they had a full taxidermy wolf. And
a full wolf.
Full wolf. It was like in a scene. It was like in a glass case with like plants. It was a whole thing. And we both were independently like, oh, that's awesome. We want that. And then we asked how much it cost. It was like $5,000. And we were like, God, thank you so much. Goodbye. And then we didn't have taxidermy. We didn't have taxidermy for years after that. It was really, when I was in New Orleans, the first time on tour, I bought like one of those preserved alligator heads that they sell at every tourist shop, and that kind of broke the floodgates. And then after that, we started, because especially the antique stores, a lot of it is we started coming up to where we ended up moving in the Hudson River Valley, and the antique stores up here are just jammed with antique taxidermy, and some of them are very cheap. There's one place in particular that I love because they always have taxidermy, but the guy who owns it hates taxidermy, so he always prices it very, very low just to get rid of it. So it just kind of came out of that. We just started buying it when we went to antique stores, which is a thing we used to do before, the illness.
But like we have built, we've moved I moved into his apartment, his bachelor pad, and tried to, kind of make it our home. And then we moved into some apartments, and then we moved into this house. And so it's always hard to kind of design for two people. But so I would have an opinion about what I liked and I thought was cool or neat. And Joseph would be like, that's hideous, I hate that. And he would have sort of a similar thing. And if I could find something that we both were like, okay, great, then that was our style. And that's what's in this house. So it really is kind of the combination of both of our aesthetics is taxidermy. And I guess that's kind of like a interesting metaphor for relationships.
Well, you chose it for the cover. I mean,
yeah. And then for my birthday this year, Joseph got me the squirrels from the cover.
Oh, wait. Give us the hot dish here. Wait. Which came first?
The book cover came first. Yeah.
So
what?
Okay, so the book cover is actually, Meg found this and sent it to the publisher being like, I think this, and this is straight up a shot. It actually, you can see it on the back cover, next to the barcode. It says "Squirrels, courtesy of the taxidermy store," and it gives It was just like the product picture for a taxidermy item. So I went to that item and I was like, because it occurred to me, I wanted to get Meg a birthday gift and also like a gift for her first book coming out. And it occurred to me, we should own the squirrels on the cover. That would make total sense. But someone had bought them. They were already sold. And that's when I found out that squirrels and canoes are actually a very common taxidermy subject. There is hundreds of squirrels and canoes. And so I managed to find another online taxidermy store that had ones with almost the identical pose.
I mean, you fooled me. You definitely fooled me.
I think this one is actually better taxidermy.
It's a very good quality. It's
better made, but it's the same. So yeah.
Okay, because I'm sure I'm not alone. I'm seeing people in the chat as well saying this, but like, I'm sure I'm not alone thinking that like, oh, that's just taxidermy they had. Just personal taxidermy becomes the cover of the, and of course I didn't read the back of it. Do you think that squirrels in canoes are they popular because they're sort of a like entry level taxidermy?
I mean, I can tell you, I not to get into that because it was a gift for Meg, but the price was not entry level. So I don't think that's it. I think people like scenes, and squirrels are fairly easy to pose as humans because they stand on hind legs and have kind of handy things.
They're also easy to come by as far as acquiring the raw material.
Right. Generally intact. Yeah. Generally intact and not hard to come by. And I also think people probably like making the canoe.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the canoes are fun.
Yeah.
Well, would you all hold up your squirrels one more time? And would you please note in between the squirrels what has been added from the book cover? Yes, there is the tiny squirrel there, which if you have not read the book, the tiny squirrel is the subject of the very last chapter of the book. And I am a hard piece of stone, and I cried. I'm a hard piece of stone who does not want to be a parent, and I cried at a beautiful letter that Meg writes to your unborn squirrel.
To our unborn squirrel who's cooking, who's 34.
She's almost 35
done. Weeks right now. So
she's almost done. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Is that the timer? Is that the timer that went off?
We're close. We're pretty close. Yeah. She's due June 20th. So we're looking forward to that.
What sign does that make her?
It's cuspy. So, right now she has the potential she could be born Taurus if things happen quickly. But it's a Gemini Cancer cusp. So who's to say which way it could go?
And cuspy will be her name.
Well, she's due on the solstice, and we are raising her goth. So.
Which, of course, is the last promise that the book gives. What was I going to ask you? Now you're 4 book events in to this week when everything's coming out, and I'm sure you're getting feedback from friends and family and from people and from fans too about the book. But did making the book change your relationship? Has talking about the book changed your relationship?
No, I don't think so. Not for me. Meg apparently has a different answer, but I just feel like part of the reason this book seemed like a good idea is because it felt like our relationship could withstand the scrutiny. Like our relationship was very strong going in, and so it doesn't feel any different for me other than that it was nice to like relive some of these memories and get a better understanding of them. But I don't know. I feel like the relationship was a pretty strong base for this book to stand on.
I think it definitely did. It changed the relationship for me in the sense that we had collaborated on stuff together before, but this is the first book that we wrote together. So this is like, and with the stuff we collaborated on before was a little bit lower stakes. It was, some plays, and while the Night Vale stuff is a much bigger collaboration, we have very different roles in the world of Night Vale. But in this book, we're kind of on an equal playing field as far as whose job is what. So it was both of our jobs to write this book. So it was interesting to get to work together in this sense. And I found it really lovely. I found it really fun. I didn't know going into it whether it was going to be frustrating to try to, Joseph is a very established author. So he has written a bunch of these books, but has always been really patient and encouraging of me, which is really great. You don't know if that's what you're going to get. But he was always really patient, encouraging of me to continue with this project and to make it happen and prioritize it in our lives and get it done. So yeah, it's changed our relationship in that I feel it's another way to feel loved and to feel appreciated for the art that I make.
I've been trying to get her to write a book for years.
I know. Well, as like a friend of both of yours and a fan of both of yours, I'm so pleased that now that Meg has a space on my bookshelf too, which is really lovely. You all are the second book I've read in the last 2 weeks by friends, right? Because my friend Kiara that I've collaborated with also wrote a memoir, and it's a pleasure to like read. It is a different part of you, right? So like if people like Night Vale, if people are your friends and have been over to dinner, like we like you, but like it's also getting to know you in a different way. And I'm a different person like in the chat than I am at your dinner party. So like it's nice to have the book, and it's nice to like have that piece of you that I hope other people will I'm sure other people will also like appreciate, like getting to know you in that way. I mean, I did look to see if I was mentioned by name in the book.
You're in the acknowledgement.
I am. No, just kidding. But I was actually present for some of the events in the book, and that was really nice. Maybe a tiny glimpse of being able to like kind of relate to like what you all were talking about, of like hearing someone's perspective on some place that you were at, so which I really appreciated. So do you think the lifestyle blog is next? Like Joseph and Meg, like lifestyle, like Instagram influencer bloggers, like couples advice?
I'm just wondering what we would call it, like all the lifestyle blogs that are like poosh and goop, and I feel like ours would be like creep or like
I mean, I think creep is great. Like creep meets goth croth.
I think we could go with the wedding hashtag we never used.
You care to share that with the audience? You're welcome.
So when you have a wedding, you're expected to have a wedding hashtag so that people can find the photos. And the wedding hashtag we used wasn't great. It wasn't particularly memorable. And then who came up with it?
It was me.
So Meg,
like the next day after our wedding.
Oh, so the one you didn't use is the good one.
The next day after our wedding, we realized what the perfect one would have been. And in fact, this computer is sitting on a Lazy Susan that is actually engraved with this hashtag we never used, which is 2 in the Fink.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the name of your lifestyle blog, offering like weekend retreats for couples to learn the Joseph and Meg way, uh, buying like bespoke bakery strings to like put and basically commodifying your relationship for you. Is that okay?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to be in a position where, I mean, we wrote a couples book. We wrote a love story about our relationship. And so it is, we kind of have assigned ourselves the role unintentionally of like relationship expert, which is, you know, I feel, I love our relationship and I feel very confident in it. And I feel like we've worked really hard at it, but it didn't feel like hard work at the time. So I feel good at giving relationship advice, but it is interesting to sort of cast yourself in the role of like, we are experts. We are 10 years together. We're actually,
Well, you're experts in your relationship.
in our relationship,
That's
right?
very clear. So you can claim the mantle of expert.
Yes.
Just before this, I was reading in the newest New Yorker, David Sedaris actually has an essay about being with Hugh for 30 years.
Oh, wow.
And he talks about being asked about relationship advice and being like, I don't know. I have no idea how this happened. I have nothing to tell you. He's like, you know, we both liked showing up at places on time and being tidy, and then 30 years passed. That's what I got for you.
I'll jump in bed with that. Be there on time, clean up your shit. That's what I need.
Yeah.
Do you want to give any relationship advice right now? We have a couple minutes before we'll do Q&A, but
Like,
I have the standard one that I've been kind of giving, which is to always ask for what you need from your partner and to ask out loud for it, whatever it is that you need, whether it is something big, like I need you to be patient with me right now, I'm going through something hard, or whether it's something small, like I need you to remember to run the dishwasher. Whatever it is, it's best to ask it out loud and make sure that the other person hears you, because no matter how much someone loves you, they can't read your mind, and you can spend a lot of time stewing in resentment for something that you're not getting that you need. But if you haven't asked for it, you know, it doesn't hurt to ask. And if hopefully they can give it to you. And if they can't, then, you know, you figure that out, but ask for what you need and then listen when your partner asks you for something that they need and try your best to give it to them. So
that's good. Joseph, got any?
Yeah, for me, I think it's that a relationship is not a noun or an object that exists outside of the two of you. A relationship is a verb. It's an activity that both of you do together. I think you always have to think about a relationship as existing entirely. This might be the Jewishness in me of I just value actions over everything else. And so a relationship is just the things you do with and for each other. And it's kind of nothing else. And so you really have to pay attention to and value those.
I mean, I think both of the things are very clear from the book as well, but we'll put those each on a t-shirt and we'll make them available from your website. Questions in the Q&A, folks? There's nothing in there right now, but don't be shy. We got bread and squirrels are quite popular in the chat right now. Do you have any questions for me?
yeah.
Having read your book? Since there's no Q&A so far, anyone who's watching puts a question in there, we'll stop this madness and answer your question immediately.
I'm trying to think a question. Do you think that you could do a project like this with the partner or
I'd love to.
Yeah.
I think it sounds really fun. I mean, it's actually quite like a song that I wrote, and I hadn't thought about it until we were just talking. But there's a song that I wrote years ago called "You Were Right About Everything."
Love that song.
I love that song too, and I wrote it with my friend Chris Coip, who's a fellow Virginian, and we wrote it. He lives on this farm in Virginia, and he's got a piano in his kitchen, and a horseshoe set outside. Okay, we've got a question, and so we would basically I'd go in and I'd write a few lines and write out some chords. And then I'd go outside and we'd switch, and I'd play horseshoes, and he'd come in and he would write the next set of lines and the next set of chords, and then we'd switch. And we did that until we had the whole song. And so we sort of kind of knew what we were writing about, but we didn't quite, so it was a little bit the same thing we did. I never heard him do his part of it. He never heard me do mine. And so then we sort of like married them together. So I could see the lyrics that he wrote, but I didn't know the sound of what he'd written. And so that's how that song happened. And it's a little bit the same way. But yeah, I'd love to. I think it'd be, for better or for worse, really nice to have that perspective on, you know, favorite moments or hard moments or things that we shared together. Kind of like double your pleasure.
Before we get to the question, that reminds me of, this is not related to the book, but Jeffrey and I, when we're writing Welcome to Night Vale, almost always work entirely separately. We don't usually write at the same time, but there was one time where we did, which was we were on tour, and it was like the very first time we were touring, and we were staying at an Airbnb in Las Vegas, and we realized that Mara Wilson was going to be in the show the next day, and we hadn't written anything for her. And there was a pool table, and so what we did is Meg was there, and one of us would play pool with Meg, and the other one would work on the Mara scene, just like at the couch next to the table. And then when the game ended, the person who had been playing would sit down and just take over the scene while the other person played pool. And we just did that until the scene was written. It's the only time we've worked together in the same room.
It's interesting to hear about that song, though, because listening to that song, I knew that it was co-written with someone else, but that's just because like I had read the liner notes or whatever. I didn't know that, like, the process of it. And it's so interesting to know that song very well and not be able to see the seams of it.
But if you look at it, you can see that things happen in twos. The verse kind of have like the first half of the verse is sort of one way, and the second half is kind of another way, and it doesn't have a chorus. It's sort of 3 sets of tradings, which is how it came about. But we wrote 3 songs that day, and we wrote them each 3 differently. So that was the last one because we were tired of the other ways we had written, which one way was sitting in the yard. Chris has a very distinctive voice that's kind of damaged, so he'll like play and be and I'll be like, oh, did you say? And he'll be like, oh no, I didn't, but that's great. So we wrote one song like that. I don't remember how we wrote another one, and then the third one we wrote with this similar process of kind of not checking in with each other, but seeing kind of just, it's a giant yes and, right? Because you just have to take what came before it. Okay, well, Aviva asks, how did we 3 get to know each other? This is a good story.
Fun fact. So early on in Night Vale, I had this weather segment, and I would just, eventually it turned into people submitted their songs. That's how we do it now. But in the early days, I just emailed people who wrote songs I liked and asked them if I could feature them. And only 2 musicians ever said no. One of which was Erin McKeown. You sent me a very nice email back saying, no, thank you.
What?
That was our first interaction.
I don't know about this. This is not what I thought our first interaction was. Oh, I'm so embarrassed.
But then
I'm so embarrassed.
Saw you were playing a show up in Hudson with the Mountain Goats.
This is what I thought. See, yeah. This is the book come to life. This is the book come to life.
Yeah, I didn't know this at the time, but yeah, we had we saw you with the Mountain Goats up in Hudson, and we said hi after the show and introduced ourselves and chatted, and you rocked that. You're so damn good on, like, in any sort of application. You were like their support act that night, their opener, and you were so good. And I was like, she should come on the road with us.
Yeah, it was a thing. Like, I had been, my sister introduced me to you when I was a teenager. Right.
And I knew that part.
Yeah. And so, but I'd never seen you live. And so, yeah, when we saw you live and we saw how your presence in a solo, like just you, that's when, yeah, for your, like, I think it took another couple, we weren't touring Night Vale yet. I'm not sure Night Vale existed.
No, we did. We were, because it was, here we get into it. We were up in Hudson for,
because I knew John Darnielle by then, so it would have been.
So I think it was 2020
Yeah, I think it was still a couple years before it happened.
Yeah, because you didn't come out there with us until 2016, 17?
Summer of 2016.
Okay.
Doesn't matter. The point is just that it took a couple years, but for those years, every time we were trying to figure out a live weather, I think both of us were like, we should get Erin, just because that show like impressed us so much in terms of like, she can just take over a stage.
Well, I just remember, I remember that moment afterwards at the merch table where you were like, we have a podcast. Would you ever go on the road? And I was just like, these people are so nice. They're so nice. Like, sure. And I didn't think again. And then, yes, it's like 2 years later, an email happened. And, it's life-changing. I'm so sorry, Joseph. I should have said yes.
It's totally fun. To me, that makes it better.
Okay. We got quite
It
a
was you and the Cosmetics were the only two people to ever say no.
Well, they have a Grammy. Okay. So let's answer this question quick. Dominic wants to know, does the book start with you guys dating? And the answer is yes. The book begins with
Starts before.
Yeah, Joseph's 2009 is before we even met, really. And then we meet in that chapter. And then my 2009 is the day of our first date.
Mm-hmm.
There's a secret to this book. That is the reason why there's not a table of contents. And I'm curious if anyone ever discovers the secret to the book.
You're gonna tell them?
I think you're gonna have to reveal the secret.
The secret is that there's 11 years. Because we start with 2009, we end with 2019. We had to do it that way because we wanted to tell the story before we were dating.
Right. And but it's also nice to my mind, it's nice that you stopped before the pandemic as well. That's for the next book.
Yeah, we did have the conversation, like our editor was kind of like, should we do a 2020 chapter? Like, do we want to do this? And then we were like, let's leave this firmly on the other side of this.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Do the squirrels have names?
No.
Meg and Joseph.
Sure.
Perfect. And this is another from an anonymous person. How did you decide to write this book, and where did the idea for the unique format come from? We talked about that a little bit in terms of like games, creative games.
Yeah, I mean, I thought of it a few years back. It was probably like year 9 out of the 10 that I was like, when we get to like kind of all of it came at once, which often happens with me. Like the title, the first 10 years and the concept all kind of happened at once. A similar thing happened with Night Vale. Like the name Night Vale came with the idea. Don't know how. And part of it is I do have a little bit of I don't know if audience pleasing is the right word for it, but I do think about whether anyone but me would be interested in the thing. And this concept, I'm like, I think people would be interested in this. Like that was part of the equation for me of like, I'm like, if we're going to tell our story, this seems like a way to do it that other people would be interested in. So that was kind of part of it for me.
I suppose I could have like been a dramaturg and tried to find other books that do this. I do think there are some, but there's also like a bunch of plays that do a nice job of like you seeing the same thing from another angle or something like that. So it's not a like out of the blue concept, but like super rewarding, obviously. I'm not sure I understand this question, but I'll read it out loud. Chuck asks, in all of your touring, have you seen the next pre-Yuppie Williamsburg?
Yes.
Is it Tulsa?
Boise, Idaho.
Boise. Oh, yeah.
Oh, I understand. Chuck, that's a good question. My apologies for not quite getting it. Okay, Boise. You think it's Boise?
What do you think? Well, actually, it's like kind of like mid yuppie.
Yeah, a lot of people are moving to Boise.
But when we first started touring there, it was like, okay, this is happening, and it was so quick. It was because we've been through Boise maybe 5 times, and it just every time I go, there's another coffee shop, there's another artisanal butcher, there's another.
I'm not going to fight you on that. I think you're probably right. I've only been to Boise once, but that seemed I was very comfortable.
I will go on record as finding Boise a truly miserable place, but it does seem to be.
But you haven't been since 2014, right? So like you haven't.
No.
I went with you all in like 2017, maybe 2018. And there was like fun street art, like a couple really good coffee shops, an easy bike path, a hip hotel. I was fine. Yeah. Maybe Missoula?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe
Missoula still feels a little
too Mountain West kind of like something people are moving to.
Yeah.
I wonder. Yeah, I haven't heard of anyone. I know of like multiple people who have moved to Boise. I haven't seen a similar thing with Missoula, but Hank Green's there, so it does seem pretty cool.
And there's the University of Montana at Missoula is there. They have a surfing wave. They have that surfing wave thing.
Really?
It's like a river that has a man-made wave in it, so they can surf it. So it's like the middle of town. It's right by the knitting factory, actually. We only did Missoula once. We did the knitting factory, and I just remember sitting outside and watching people surf in this river.
Which is so classic Williamsburg that there is a knitting factory in Missoula, actually. We have another great question here. That we'll do this and then I've got one more for you. But what are you three working on now?
Growing a human using only my blood. I'm working on putting
perhaps some supplements.
I'm working on putting Night Vale back on the road in 22. So booking out that tour for us is what we're working on. I'm also hoping to write another book that is just written by me. So I will be working on that in the next year or so. That'll also be memoir essays.
Please encourage her to do that.
I know, please do that.
I would like her to do that, and she needs a lot of encouragement. I mean, the next thing I have coming out is this summer. I have a middle grade novel that I wrote most of it back in 2016. So it's actually been in existence for a while, but it's coming out this summer called The Halloween Moon that I'm very excited about. But I mean, the thing about creative stuff, as you know, is the stuff that's coming out is the stuff you worked on like quite a while ago. I'm working on now a new novel that is like an adult literary novel just by me. We're actually just taking out to publishers this week. I'm very excited about it. It's very different than anything I've done before, but it's also maybe closer to the kind of writing I want to be doing in the future. So it feels good.
Is it done or in proposal?
It's in proposal. I've written about half the rough draft and then also put together like a polished proposal of it.
I spent the week doing the design for the vinyl of my new record, which comes out in September. That's all I'm doing, is spending money on things to come out in September. And maybe I'm trying to find a project for the summer. I definitely need a project for the summer. Like I can't spend my whole summer like thinking about putting out a record in the fall. I definitely need last summer I spent it like writing songs with little beats on my phone, and which then turned into this record. So I need to find something this summer to do. I did think about writing a book. You all have inspired me.
You should.
Yeah.
It would be gorgeous.
Yeah, I think it would be a book about the kind of church that I would build.
I love that.
What's okay? Oh, we're out of time. Thanks everybody for for all these questions, and thanks for being here with us. It looks like most people in the chat said they hadn't read the book yet, or they were planning on getting it. So tonight's a good night to get it from Brookline Booksmith. They're putting the lovely link in the chat for everybody. My last question for you is: will there be another book in 10 years?
I hope so. We have started writing it because we want to try to write it in real time. So we'll see how that goes. But
we'll see. I mean, yeah, it kind of depends. Do people like this one? If they do, then that makes the next one much more likely.
Good. Everybody like it and tell your friends about it, because I want the next 10 years.
Yeah, thank you all so much. I can't wait for the sequel, the 10 years with the small human that you're growing. And Erin, when you do release your cult book, please consider us for the event. I'm ready to join.
That wins the night. Yes, that's right. I'm writing a book describing the cult that I will lead.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you all so much. You can find, of course, the first 10 years on brooklinebooksmith.com, link in the chat, and any of our other events on brooklinebooksmith.com/events. Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
Enjoy your challah.
Thank you.